Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
So today is something of a first. I'm not using the duct tape Bible. This is the same version, and I know people on the internet always want to know, what Bible do you use? I'm using King James to preach from, and this particular one is the companion Bible, because I like the notes and the appendices. Although, as I get older and my eyes for reading get less powerful, I may go to the Scriptures large version that I have, because the words just it's like a children's book. They jump out at you. But, yeah. So, same Bible, just different because my other one was literally falling apart. Praise the Father.
Did you ever get them off of the other one?
I did. I'm still keeping it, but what I did, like today, this week and today when I was finishing up my notes when I was studying, I was reading out of the new Bible, I had to go back to the old Bible, and I was transferring my notes. The reason I never got rid of the old one is because I had so many notes written in it, I don't want to lose them. So I'm back here writing in the margins. So I guess for the next good while, it'll take me a while to transfer them all. All right. We are starting a new chapter today in John, chapter 16. And be it the Father's will, it's certainly mine. We're going to cover 3 whole verses today. I know, right? All right. Let's get going. You know what? I feel the need to pray, so let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for your word. Thank you for this assembly. Father, I just pray that as I speak the words, that you guide the words that do come out of my mouth, that I say the things you would have me say. Father, I just pray that we all here learn the things you would have us learn. In Yeshua's name, amen. Okay, so John 16, verses 1 through 3. These things have I spoken unto you. This is Yeshua speaking. These things have I spoken unto you, that you should not be offended. They shall put you out of the synagogues. Yea, the time cometh that whosoever kills you will think that he does God service. And these things will they do unto you, because they have not known my Father nor me. So he begins with these things that I have spoken unto you. And whenever I see something like that in the Word, I want to refresh myself on what is he talking about. And so just very quickly to the previous chapter, starting in verse 18 and then kind of going forward, these things of which Yeshua speaks is one, the world was going to hate you, but just remember that it hated me first. That's one of the things he told them. The world loves its own. It doesn't love you because you're not of this world. That's one of the things he talked about. He said, hey, they're persecuting me. They're about to really persecute Yeshua. They're going to persecute you too. He says that they do this, the people that do this don't know Yahweh. They don't know the Father. And so that right there begs a question, because I think today's sermon is going to be called something like church authorities or something like that. We'll get to it towards the end, but it has to do with authorities. And so who is Yeshua talking about when he says they are persecuting me, they're going to persecute you? It's church authorities that are doing that. The leaders of the church, in this case, Jewish leaders, but we can use that term church, in the broader sense. The church, the Jewish religion, those leaders are the ones persecuting Yeshua. And then in verse 22 and 24 of the previous chapter, they're doomed, right? It's over for them. So these are the things that Yeshua has spoken unto the apostles. It's kind of a bummer, right? On the one hand, it's like none of that was happy news. You're going to be persecuted. You're going to be hated. You're not of this world. Nobody loves you. The people in this world are horribly confused. They don't know the Father, and they're doomed. It's like, wow, that's an uplifting sermon. Let's get more people to come in the doors on that word, right? Yeshua wasn't concerned with that. He wasn't a seeker-sensitive guy. He was a man. He was Yah made man in the flesh who was spreading the truth. And sometimes the truth isn't what our human ears want to hear. And he says, I'm telling you this so that you are not, it says in my version, in the King James, offended. What does it say in Scriptures?
Do not stumble.
Don't stumble. That's exactly right. That's actually a better translation. It means, the Greek word is basically scandalized, but when you break that down, it's so that they're not caused to stumble. So here's the thing, they're following Yeshua, he's doing healings, he's doing all these miracles, life is pretty good, they're getting revealed the truth, the way, the truth, and the life, they're finding out all this stuff, and then he's fixing to die here very shortly, and then all these bad things are going to happen. They're actually going to feel the hatred of the world directed against them personally, they're going to see him, their master, their leader, crucified, they're going to be hunted down and killed. It's really easy to go from sweetness and light to all this hardship and stumble and go, you know what, this is way too hard, this isn't for me, and leave the way. And so he's telling them these things so that they know what's coming. You're not doing anybody any favors when you say, it's okay, everything's going to be fine, when in fact what's coming up is not fine in fleshly terms. And so he's telling them this so they do not stumble, they're not offended. Verse 2. They shall put you out of the synagogues. Do you have a different word in the scriptures? Out of the congregations, out of the assemblies. Because remember, the followers of the way, if we can use kind of modern terms, the followers of Yeshua, they were primarily originally of what religion, using today's terms? They were Jews, right? And so they gathered together in assemblies. You had to have 10 adults to make an assembly, to make a synagogue, men, and then that would form and they could have one. So they would gather together in these assemblies, and they were still doing that. They were still hearing the word. They just knew that the word is made so much fuller when we realize that our Messiah has come. And so they were still parts of these congregations, and they were going to get kicked out. He says, y'all are going to get kicked out. Do you know that is happening? Yes, I know. Testify, my little sister. Do you know that is happening today? In the churches of today, in the Christian churches of today, where almost everybody here came out of, the Christian church, what's so-called Christian church, as using again modern vernacular, they're kicking Hebrew roots, Torah observant people out. I can't tell you the number of sermons, because when Sister Kate and I travel and we have a radio in our car, we invariably end up tuned to some Christian radio station, because you're hearing the word, and I'll listen to it until the pastor just drives me too crazy and I can't listen to his interpretation of the word anymore, and I'm like, turn it off. But we have heard a lot of sermons given by Christian pastors on the radio about the dangers of the Hebrew roots movement, the dangers of the Torah observant movement, and how this is blasphemy and it denies the work that Christ did on the cross. So wait a minute, Christ did work on the cross, so is that a works-based theology? I mean, it's these things I want to ask, right? But they're kicking Torah observant people out. It's like, you guys, you are denying the Christ. You're blasphemers. And they say these things about those few of us who are coming to the way. Sister Kate brought up the point to me, and she's right. When was it? 1800s, late 1800s maybe, or late? When was the Great Awakening?
Early 1820s.
1820s, this thing in America called the Great Awakening, and America had slipped into this kind of non-Christian, pagan-esque kind of whatever, and then there was the Great Awakening. It was like a huge revival that was nationwide, and more people were coming back to Christ. That is a great movement in church history, if you will. There's a lot of stuff written about it. Sister Kate pointed out the fact that the way, coming back to the way, is another big movement in American, at least, history. There's few in if you look at the big picture, there's few in number, but there's a lot of people coming out of the standard American Christian church and coming to the truth of the way. Yeshua said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And there's a lot of people in raw numbers, I guess, that are coming to the way. So it's kind of interesting to see that start unfolding. And whenever something new happens, there's people fighting against that. Those people happen to be a lot of pastors who don't like seeing people leave their congregations and go somewhere else. I submit to you that the wheat is being separated from the chaff. that the sheep and the goats are being separated as we get closer to the end times. Just like the Father is calling his people to the Ozarks, and we just saw that today with that couple whose name I'm not going to mention here. And everybody here, I'm looking to make sure, everybody here came from somewhere else. So we're being called, there's this quickening that's happening as we approach the end times, and so we're seeing this division in the church. Now, as far as the modern Christian church and these having problems with these Torah observant people, and tell them, look, if you're going to believe all that stuff, like we got to go back and keep the law, and we're under the law, I'm inviting you to leave. Who's doing the inviting? Who's kicking them out of the assemblies? Church authorities. Pastors, or they delegate their associate pastor or one of their elders to come have that quiet talk with them and say, you know what, this can't work. My 2 elders at Round Prairie Community Church tried to kick me out when I said we need to start coming to the way. It didn't work very well for them, but they tried to do it. And that's church authorities too. I just had more authority than them. So it didn't work. All right. Verse 2 again. So they're going to kick you out of the synagogues. Yea, the time cometh that whosoever kills you will think that they do God a service. Think that they do Elohim a service. Who's ever hunting you down, you followers of me, Yeshua is saying, is going to think they're doing Elohim a service. What is a shining example of someone who was doing that, thinking he was doing Yah's service? Saul Paul, right? He was good at it. I say he was like the Delta Force or the FBI rendition team of the church at the time. And he was going and grabbing these new followers of the way of Yeshua, the way of Yah, and he was dragging them back to be tried in their synagogues, and he was killing them. And he was really good at it. And when people heard Paul was in town, they scattered because they were afraid. I'm telling you, just like Yeshua is telling his apostles here that the time is coming when they will kill you and think they're doing God's service. That time is not here yet for us, praise the Father, but that time is coming. You know, the New World Order, right? Everybody here has heard that phrase, the New World Order. And the elites of this world all want this New World Order, this one world government, which is prophesied in the Word, and we're not going there today in large part, but this one world government, this new world order is prophesied in the Word. It's going to happen. It's coming. We're on the cusp of it. And this new world order, this one world government, is religious in nature because it is headed by the Antichrist, who everyone is going to worship. And when that happens, when that thing gets locked in, they are going to hunt down and kill, or try to hunt down and kill, followers of the way of Yeshua. That is coming. And so Yeshua is telling us these things so that we do not stumble. So that when all of a sudden it's like, wow, they're sending SWAT teams after little congregations out in the middle of nowhere, the Ozarks, we need to quit believing this and let's just get on board because God wouldn't want me to die for him. People are going to make some rough and excuse for that. He's telling us these things are coming now so that we can get prepared for it mentally and be ready to deal with it. There is a reason that I only allow Israelites to be on Shofar Mountain, to live there. You know, if you want to come bug out there when we were doing the intentional community and you want to live on Shofar Mountain, only Israelites can be there. Not good Christians, not good Jews, only Israelites. Because in the end, it's going to come down to us against everybody else, or more importantly, the world against us, the followers of Yah. And we can't have division in the camp. We have to have only people who are following Yah the way he wants to be followed in the camp, because at the end there's only going to be two sides of that fence, and there will be no fence sitters, even though people will try. It's going to get real. Verse 3. And these things will they do unto you, because they have not known the Father nor me. Okay, they don't know the Father, they don't know me. Compare that, just look up above in chapter 15, verse 21. But all these things will they do unto you for my name's sake, because they know not him that sent me. Remember who he's talking about who's doing this. This is church authorities that are doing this. And he says they don't know me. They don't know the Father. And yet these are the very same people who claim to represent Yah on earth. You know, we're talking about the priesthood of the church and all that stuff that's going on. The Pharisees and the Sadducees who are very well read in Torah. And they know how to interpret it for you. These are the people who claim to represent Yah. They claim to speak for Yah to the people. They claim to interpret His word for you so that you and me and everybody else can understand it. And quite frankly, these are the people who claim the right to rule over us. Over them for sure in that day, the church authorities. They had authority to a large degree over the Jews, to use that term. And so people, they claim this power, and so people follow them. They say, I'm an authority, I'm a representative of Yah, and the people follow them, these so-called church authorities, these so-called religious leaders, these false teachers, these false prophets, because that's what they were. If they don't recognize Yeshua as Messiah, anyone who denies the Christ is what? Antichrist. They're not authorities of Yah if they deny the Christ. I'm telling you that today, the religious leaders of today are not authorities of Yah if they deny Torah, if they deny the Father's will for our lives. And yet they claim to, and yet people follow them. You can turn to Matthew chapter 7, because Yeshua talks about this. Matthew 7, verse 15. Yeshua says, beware of false prophets which come to you in sheep's clothing. Oh, they're so nice and they're so kind and they're so quiet and they're so harmless. But inwardly they are ravening wolves. You shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles? No. Even so, every good tree brings forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree brings forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that brings not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Wherefore, by their fruits you shall know them. And then what follows, and we're not going in today, is what I call the scariest bit of scripture for hardcore Christian believers. Because he says, I never knew you, you workers of lawlessness, you workers of iniquity, you people who don't keep Torah. That's who he's talking to, the people who actually think he's the Lord. But up here, he's telling us to beware of these false prophets. So who are these false prophets? Is it some dude wearing like a funny little dirty robe, carrying a stick with a sign that says, the end is near, walking down the road out here? It's not. That's not who he's talking about, because those people don't have a following. Those people are not exercising leadership. Those people aren't really influencing a whole lot of people. He's talking about religious leaders to one extent or another. And they're leaders because people follow them. You can't be a leader if you have no followers. That's just some kind of exaggeration in your mind. I'm a great leader, like Napoleon. Well, Napoleon was a great leader. But they're leaders because people follow them. People are following these false prophets. These people who are speaking wrong things, false things. They are prophesying in the name of Yah. They're not, but they say they are. And they're speaking falsehoods. And people follow them. And Yeshua is warning us against them. Now, religious leaders, that's who I'm talking about. Political leaders. Who's more important? I won't make you answer. Religious leaders or political leaders, who's more important?
Religious.
Depends on what you mean by religion.
There are bad religious leaders. They're leaders. They're religious, and they're bad. There are good religious leaders. There are leaders out there who are preaching the word of Yah. And by their fruit, you shall know them. That's what Yeshua says. What kind of fruit are they producing? I did a video recently, and I titled it something like Creating Your Own Reality. And I was kind of talking about us, the Shofarians. And it's like, all of us came from somewhere else. Most of us had pretty darn good jobs and a pretty interesting lifestyle where we came from, and we kind of left that. We came out here to the Ozarks, and we're trying to live closer to Yah. We're trying to live less worldly lives. We're trying to gather together and be together and try to do what we think the Father wants us to do. And in there, in that video somewhere, I was talking about, we have rules to live by, and I was talking about Torah, but I didn't really want to say that in the video. The Father has given us rules to live by, and that gives us a lot of leeway. There really is a lot of leeway. You can follow Torah and have a lot of leeway. I'm looking at you right now, and you've got a hood on. Well, what does Torah say about that? Nothing. So can you do that? Yes. Can you not do that? Yes. But the example I used, because it just came to my mind while I was shooting the video, was driving a car. Are you breaking Yah's commandments by driving a certain kind of car or a different kind of car, or by not stopping completely before you turn left or whatever? And no, there's no rules about how to drive a car, or for that matter, an ox cart or a chariot or anything else. So I submit to you that Yah doesn't really care as long as you don't go outside of that and break other Torah laws about that. And somebody took me to task on that. And they said, what about, so I want you to turn there, Romans 13. And I tell you what, just let me use the term Christian church, the standard Christian church in America is so messed up with Romans 13. And it has to do with authorities, which is what we were talking about, which is why we're going to this today. All right, Romans 13, verses 1 through 7. I'm just going to read 1 through 7, and then we're going to come back to it. This is King James. Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. Whosoever therefore resists the power, resists the ordinance of God, and they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. So, Christians are big on this verse, and we are going to go forward from this, but we're going to stop right here for a second. Christians are really big on this verse. You have to obey the president because he's ordained of God. And if you resist the president, because so their argument goes, if you resist him, then you're going to receive unto yourself damnation. And this Christian ideal, because most of us in the Torah-observant, Hebrew roots, Israelite, Messianic, whatever title you want to put on it, belief came out of mainline Christianity. And most of us, because we were searching for his highest truth, his higher truth, the way, we were pretty serious Christians. And so a lot of people in the Torah-observant Hebrew roots, again, pick what title you want, movement, have brought this belief over, Messianics, and they believe the same thing, still. And the way this one person phrased it was something like, well, as long as it doesn't violate Scripture, we're supposed to obey the authorities over us. And he was referring to political authorities. Let's read a little bit more. Whoop. That was 2. Verse 3. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to evil. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and you shall have praise of the same. Do you know when Paul wrote this? Because Paul wrote this, right, to the church in the Roman church, the people who are believing the way. And Paul wrote this. It's the same Paul that was sent forth by the church authorities to go after and capture and kill Christians, kill believers of the way, right? Those followers of Yeshua. The same Paul who wrote this about obeying authorities, received a commission, was ordained, if you will, by authorities, church authorities, right? He had all the power of the church behind him when he went out and hunting down people. He did not have his power. He did not receive all the power he exercised from the Roman civil authorities. Paul didn't care about Rome. Rome cared about them because Rome had occupied the whole area, but they're basically like, you Jews, you do your own little thing. As long as it doesn't rise up to this certain level, you can handle it. You're cool. And so Paul is operating purely on church authority when he did all these things. So what do you think Paul is talking about? What he had in mind when he wrote this was in the context of Exodus 23. So please go back to Exodus. Keep your finger here. We're coming back. Exodus 23. What verse are we going to? Verse 2. If I can find it. Exodus 23, verse 2. Thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil, neither shalt thou speak in a cause to decline, which also means to turn away from, to decline after many, to wrest judgment. You shall not follow a multitude to do evil. You should also not speak in a cause that will turn people and wrest them away from the authorities. We live today, supposedly, in America, in a representative democracy. It's a republic, but it's a representative democracy. And we have this belief, this cultural belief as American that we all have a say because we all have a vote and every vote matters and we're a democracy. That's what Americans, to the extent that they think about it at all, think. And they think your vote matters. But in fact, we don't really live in a representative democracy. We live in an oligarchy. An oligarchy is where the elites control what's going on with everything below them. The elites in this country, the oligarchy in this country, has all the levers of power under their control. And so I listed them here. They've got the financial levers of control. There's a talk right now that the whole reason the stock market's doing this is because, and it's a pretty good theory, Trump's getting ready to get rid of NAFTA, which the elites don't like, and when he gets rid of NAFTA, it's going to make our markets dive a little bit before they recover in the long term, and so they're trashing the system right now, so it's like, oh, well, I don't want to make it dive after we've already been doing this volatility. And so they control the levers of power to control the levers of financial power. They control, these elites in this country control the military and the police. You don't really have a say on what the police are doing. You really don't. Oh, yes, we do, Pastor Joe. We can go vote and we can vote. You don't have control of the military or police. Other people have that control. They have control of the media. Everything that's coming out of that idiot box that most Americans tune into is controlled at a very high level. You don't have control of what's coming out there because most of you in this room won't let your kids watch it. And there's a reason for that, because it's evil. They control education, which is why I think everybody in here homeschools, and they don't like that. The elites are constantly trying to figure out how to not let you homeschool, and in some places they're successful where they are more in power. They control the food you eat. You know, it's against the law to say this doesn't have GMOs in it, or in some places it's against the law to say this is all organic, and then they control what it means when you say organic at a farmer's market, and so this guy who really is growing organically can't say he's growing organically, but this guy who says he is growing organically does all this garbage that none of us would want on our food. I mean, it's ridiculous the kind of control they have, but we go through this life thinking that, you know, we live in this representative democracy. I'll submit to you also, and this started a long time ago, that with political correctness, I mean, and who comes up with this stuff? The political elites, they're not just political elites, they control what you say because you don't want to get embarrassed by saying something that's politically incorrect. And when they control what you say long enough, they control what you think. And when they control what you think, they're controlling your actions. And it all starts down here with political correctness and public shaming of people who say words that actually mean what they say. Now, oh, you can't say that. Well, you can. So, majority rule. Did the majority of voters in this country vote for President Obama? The majority of voters vote for President Obama when he won the president twice in a row. They did. The majority of the voters voted for Obama. Did the majority of voters who voted, that makes them a voter, vote for Trump in this election? Yes, they did. The majority voted. So it's like, hey, the majority won, PJ. Okay, let's take that argument. Are the majority of people in this country following Yah? Are they truly following Yah? Are the majority of the voters following Yah? Following the way, the truth, and the life? They are not. We are a minority. We are a remnant, and more of us are going to fall away before this whole thing ends. And so if the majority of the people are not with Yah, who are they with? There's only two sides. They're with the adversary. That means the majority of people, I mean, this sounds really harsh, and people on YouTube are going to quit watching us for this. But the majority of people in this country are wicked, evil people. I don't care if it is that lovely, nice little lady across the street who makes cookies for every new person that moves in. If she's not following Yah, she is de facto following the adversary. And so whether she knows it or not, she's wicked and evil. It's like Sister Kate and I when we lived in Malaysia. The nicest people in Malaysia of the locals were the Indians from India. They were really nice people. And I used to refer to them as very friendly Satanists. They were really nice people. I liked them on a human level. But if they don't mend their ways, they're going to hell because they're following after strange gods. So, if wicked and sinful people establish the government, if wicked and sinful people set up the elites and the authorities under which we fall, are we bound by Yah to follow those people? We are not. We are not bound by Yah to follow that system. Come out of her, my people, lest you partake of her plagues. That doesn't just mean move to the Ozarks. That means free your mind and get your mind out of that system that I've got to do it because the majority voted for it. If you put in your mind we've got the followers of Yah and everybody else, make everybody else in your mind Satanists. If the whole town was Satanist, obviously Satanist, wearing weird things and burning crosses or whatever Satanists do, I don't even know. And then they elected a mayor, would you say, yep, need to follow that mayor? Because he's elected, he's ordained by God, and if we don't, we're damned. No. But I'm telling you, that's the truth of what's happening today. If you actually look at the real picture, if you take those glasses off your head. I'm going to read that one more time. Are you bound to obey them? Exodus 23, verse 2. You shall not follow a multitude. A multitude sounds like a majority to me. You shall not follow a multitude to do evil. If you are breaking Torah, you are doing evil. You shall not follow a multitude to do evil, neither shalt thou speak in a cause to decline after many to wrest judgment. Back to Romans 13. Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers. I believe it says in Scripture's version, to the supreme powers, something like that. Governing authorities. Okay, well, we're getting there. The higher powers, the word used in Greek means supreme. So the supreme powers. Let every soul be subject to the supreme powers. So I got a question for you. Which powers are supreme? Yah's powers or man's powers? Yah's powers are supreme. Let every soul be subject to the supreme powers. If Yah's powers are supreme, then whose authorities are supreme? Yah's authorities or man's authorities? Yah's authorities are supreme to man's authorities. This starts becoming problematic in 21st century United States of America. Used to not be so, but we've gotten away from that as we've become more enlightened and more progressive in thought and deed and action, and as we become more wicked as a people, as we get away from the way Yah wants us to live. Yah's authorities are more important than man's authorities. Jeremiah 3:15, I will give you pastors after my own heart, who shall feed you with knowledge and with understanding. Pastors is shepherds. It doesn't have to be just a dude who's up here preaching the word. It's shepherds of the flock, leaders of the flock, authorities of the flock. I will give you shepherds after my own heart, shepherds who are following me, shepherds who I'm extending my love to, and they will feed you with knowledge and with understanding. Those pastors, those shepherds, those ra'ah in the Hebrew, are church authorities. They're feeding you the way Yah wants you to be fed. Romans 13 again. Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God. Elohim, the powers that be are ordained of God. Do you think the United States Congress is ordained by God? Do you think God said, yes, I bless this Congress? Do you think Nancy Pelosi is ordained by God, who is straight out for abortion? She claims to be a Catholic, and she's straight up for abortion. Do you think Chuck Schumer, the openly sodomite senator, is ordained by God as a leader of his people here in America? Well, he's ordained by God, Pastor Joe. If he votes for something and they pass it, you've got to obey it, or you're damned. You can't say he's ordained by Yah. This is the Congress, the Senate, the supreme rulers of the land that we're under which everything else flows. You know, this little city council out here flows under federal law, state law, city law. It all has to match up and down the chain. In fact, and I'm not going there in the sermon, well, for one thing, because we have a lot of kids, these Congress critters are depraved, wicked, evil people in large numbers. The things they do, the things they get away with are horrible. We're just starting to see a little bit of that erased, and it's all the elites. Right now you're seeing all this stuff about Hollywood and Me Too and all that crap. It's like they didn't know what was going on before. It's a sudden revelation that nobody knew was happening. These people are wicked and they're evil, and they're the authorities. Are these people ordained by Yah? No. Are we damned if we don't follow them? Well, you know, the senator invited me up to his hotel room at midnight, and he's ordained by Yah, so I guess I better go. Well, we had a few drinks before we went up there. Are you kidding me? I don't understand how these people believe this stuff that comes out of their mouth. So the question again, do you think they're ordained by Yah? They are ordained. They are empowered. They take their little oath of office and they're put in these positions of power. They have been elevated to power. They do serve their leader. And what leader is that they actually serve? The prince of this world. Because you do not rise to positions of great power and influence in this world unless you are serving the prince of this world. It's his world. It's his rule. The Father is letting him have it for now. And so you are not going to be somebody if you don't serve Satan. Now, you may not take the actual blood vow or whatever the heck they do. Again, I don't know what they do. And actually know, yep, I'm definitely serving Satan. You could just go along with it. You're serving him just the same. He doesn't really care. Although I tell you, I believe some of these people in these high positions actually do take that vow and know exactly what they're doing. But they're serving somebody. They've been ordained. So here's a question. I was asked this question when I first became a pastor, because the people I worked for in this government organization, first in the Army, then I left and I came back as a civilian with a big long beard 7 months later. And they were kind of afraid of me because they were very civilianized when I was a Special Forces guy, and they were like, ooh, that guy's crazy, don't talk to him, he could go off, man, he could kill us all. I mean, they believed this stuff. And then I came back looking like a wild man, and they're like, ooh. Then they found out, oh my God, did you hear that? He's a pastor? And I got this question a lot. No one would come ask me directly. They would always talk around it because they were afraid, PTSD or something. Here's the question. I'll just get to it. I'm not going to dance around like they did. Who ordained you? How were you ordained? And I would look them straight in the eye and say, I was ordained by God to preach the word. They didn't know how to handle that. Well, my question to you is, do you believe I'm ordained by God to be a pastor? Because if you don't, you're wasting your time here. If you don't believe that, you really shouldn't be here. You should, what are you doing here? Who's this guy? See, I'm ordained by Yah. I am. I'm a 315 pastor. There are many 315 pastors. I'm a church authority. There's other authority. Which one's more important? No matter what you say, the way you live your life, the way I live my life, we've got a lot of thinking to do on this, on how we kind of recognize things in our head, because I don't believe we're living that way right now. This part of Romans 13 that we're reading is about church authorities. When he says, obey the higher powers, be subject to the higher powers, he's talking about not only church authorities, but true church authorities. Those people in the church who were they started out as Jews, they started out keeping Torah, and then they recognized Yeshua HaMashiach, Yeshua, and actually, here's another thing. Side thing, we can talk about this later. I don't think his name was Yeshua. I think it was Yahshua or Yehoshua. I think it was the exact same name as Joshua. But we say, Joshua's name was really Yehoshua. Right? Isn't that what we say? Yehoshua was Joshua? Yehoshua? But Jesus was Yeshua, because we don't want to make it the same. Because we're trying to throw this religion on there. His parents named him Yahshua. Yahshua ben Yosef, son of Joseph. He is the Mashiach. But we want to make it extra special and say he's Yeshua. We don't want to say Yahshua. Different subject for a different time. But those people who followed him, the authorities in the church, the leaders of the way of Yahweh, the way of Yeshua. I'll just say that. It will be too confused if I don't right now. That's who he's talking about. You need to be subject unto them, or you will receive, look at this, the powers that be ordained of God. Whoever therefore resists the power, resists the ordinance of God, and they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. Or I think it says in Scriptures, judgment. Something like that. It's the same thing. You're going to get judged for your actions. And so, does one receive damnation for violating man's, I know, right? For violating man's authority or Yah's authority? Yah's authority. These are the authorities he's talking about, his authorities. Verse 3. For the rulers, the leaders, are not terrors to good works, but to the evil. Well, good works, good by whose definition of good? Yahweh's definition of good or man's definition of good? Because see, these rulers are not a terror to good works. You know what man's good works are? What man calls good in this country? Diversity. You got to support diversity if you want to be good. Diversity like sodomy and abortion. You got to be for that if you want to be good. If you're vocal and you get mad and yell at people who engage in sodomy or who commit abortions or do that, kill babies. Well, Pastor Joe, you got to understand the law of the land. The law of the land is those things are okay. So you need to just chill out there, buckwheat. Whose law are we talking about that's good? There's no way you can get to that as a good law. And yet if you get out here on the street and start yelling at people about it, you're going to attract not good attention. What else is man's good? Separate church and state. Let's remove church, let's remove Yah from the equation. It's good to man to take the 10 Commandments off the courthouse steps or the courthouse lawn. That's good because we don't want to embarrass these other people or we don't want to make these other Satanists feel bad. So we got to take these 10 Commandments off. Yah's commandments. But that's considered good. And if you go against that, then you're bad. And so what good do you think he's really talking about here? He's not talking about man's good. He's not talking about man's authorities. The courts of this nation, the laws of this nation, the authorities of this nation disallow biblical marriage. It's biblical. It doesn't mean you have to do it, but it's biblical, and you can't do it in this country. Is that good? It's not good. Where am I? Verse 3. For the rulers are not terror to good works, but to the evil. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and you shall receive praise for the same. Do you really think Yah is going to praise you for supporting abortion, for supporting diversity, for supporting taking his commandments off the lawn and out of the face of the people? You're not going to receive praise for that. You're not having any angels in heaven saying, check out this guy, he's good, Father, keep your eye on him, he's moving, she's moving. You're not receiving praise for that. He's not talking about the authorities of man. He's talking about the authorities of the church, and more importantly, the correct church, the church that is following Yeshua and following the way. 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 17. Let the elders referred to here are church leaders. Let the elders that rule well be counted worthy of double honor, especially they who labor in the word and doctrine. For the scripture says, thou shalt not muzzle the ox that treads out the corn, and the laborer is worthy of his reward. Let those who labor in the word, let those, to just use the phrase I've been using this whole sermon, church authorities be worthy of double honor. These are the authorities you are supposed to follow. We are supposed to follow. There's only two authorities. There's only two categories of authorities. There's authorities of Yah, and there's everybody else, which I submit to you are of Satan, whether they know it or not. They could be wearing beautiful little gold crosses on their neck and preach against Satan, and all the same while they're serving him. And they don't even realize it. You're either with me or you're against me. Some men serve Yah. Most men serve Satan. Again, I'm not saying most people do that consciously or know they're doing it, but if you're not serving Yah, you're serving something, and you're serving the adversary, because that's how it works. You have to pick a side on what you're going to do. Yeshua said, he that is not with me is against me. That's in Matthew chapter 12. We read early on in this word, Yah saying, I shall put enmity between thy seed and her seed. There's going to be hatred. Yeshua's talking about hatred between the people of Yah and everybody else. We are hated for his sake. He's like, get over it. They hate me, they're going to hate you. If you were of the world would love you and make you a congressman or a mayor or the chief of police. But they don't love you because you're not of them. You're of me. You're going to get persecuted. I was persecuted. That's what he's saying. So don't worry about it. These right now that we're living in, these times right now, these are easy times. See, we don't like thinking about this stuff. We don't like thinking about, where do I put Pastor Joe versus Nancy Pelosi? Where do I put Pastor Joe versus the state police that's pulling me over? We don't like thinking about that. That like starts feeling weird to us in our 21st century life that we live here. But I'm telling you, as the times get closer, as the things ratchet down, you're going to be thinking about that stuff. And you're going to have to make some decisions. Right now, you're not pushed hard to make a decision. You can just go through your life paying heed on this hand and heed on this hand, and it's all cool and it's all good, and I don't have to worry. I don't need the drama in my life. But the time is coming when you're going to have to decide what authorities are you going to obey? What authorities are you going to recognize as an authority over you? Let every being be subject to good authorities. To governing authorities, excuse me. Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers. We're back in Romans 13. Let every being be subject to the higher powers. Let all of us be subject to the higher powers. And what higher powers are those? It's church powers. It's religious powers. It's the authorities that Yah has placed over us in life. And so you are going to have to decide that for yourself. And for the closing verses, let us go to Joshua chapter 24. Yehoshua. Now therefore, 14. Joshua 24:14. Now therefore, fear Yahweh, says the Lord in King James, and serve him in sincerity and truth, and put away the gods which your fathers served on the other side of the flood and in Egypt, and serve ye Yahweh. Do you know what one of our gods is? As Americans, democracy. That's a god to us. Democracy! I am proud to be an American. Or at least I know I'm free. How free are you? Put away those gods. Verse 15. And if it seem evil unto you to serve Yahweh, how can it seem evil to serve the Lord? Because they're going to call good evil and evil good. If it seem evil to you to serve, it's against the law in Canada to preach against homosexuality. That's evil, according to the Canadian law. Choose you this day who you will serve, whether it be the gods of your fathers that were on the other side of the flood, or the gods of the Amorites, in whose land ye dwell. Whose land do we dwell in? But as for me and my house, we will serve Yahweh. That's the decision we're all going to have to make. It will be forced upon us, and I pray that each of us makes the correct decision when that time comes to actually have to apply that decision. Let's pray.